We're going to begin our class, next class on the molecular relationship. And the subject we're talking about are the 3 keys to happiness. Key number 1 is effective communication, which we have covered in the past couple lessons. And the second key is understanding the principle of giving and receiving. And to make this work, this second key work, a person has to have a willingness to give. There's a lot of people out there who want to receive. They want a free lunch. They want people to do stuff for them, but they aren't willing to give their share. Then there's other people out there that are very giving people. Maybe they give more. They feel like they're giving, and nobody's giving anything to them. Kind of like a parent with a kid. You know, the parent often feels I give everything to my kids and don't get anything back. And sometimes it's the other way around. So then there needs to be a balance. If a person feels like he's giving too much, he may wind up feeling a grievance over this. And then if the person starts feeling a grievance, this always creates a problem, and often a health problem of some kind. So this needs to be avoided. So giving and receiving is a prime element, and a balance is needed. The tendency of general average humanity is they're more into receiving than giving. Need to go back to Kennedy's statement, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And this was a great statement he made. And I remember when he first spoke that, he converted me to him with that statement. That really impacted me when I heard him give that at his inaugural address. And the people of this country kind of drifted away from that idea to the fact that, what can my country do for me? I'm going to vote for the politician that's going to give me the most stuff. Okay, instead of thinking, well, what can I do to contribute to my country? What can I do to contribute to people, my family, my friends, my associates, to others? And so this attitude needs to be glommed onto a lot more, because it's something that we have lost to a great degree. And so this giving and receiving must achieve a balance. And it's important too it's as important to be a good receiver as it is a giver. Now, there are people that are focused on giving, but they're not very good receivers. If somebody wants to give to you and you don't think maybe you need it that bad, it's a good idea to maybe take it anyway if it makes that person feel like he or she is doing the right thing. And so it's important to allow people to give to you, especially emotionally, because many people are not connected correctly to their emotional selves. And so when it's important to look out to the people in your circle of friends and associates, and when they want to give, allow them to give and encourage them to give. And so that's important, as well as being a giver yourself, to be a good receiver. But people are like pendulums. They swing one direction or the other. Either they're focused on being the giver and they don't think they think they're so self-sufficient they don't need to receive anything, or they're focused on receiving and they want everybody to come and help them and assist them. And so people are like pendulums, and we're all extremists to some degree in the fact that we focus too much on one side or the other. We focus too much on giving, focus too much on receiving, whereas we must achieve the balance. Now, each person needs to look at himself and assess himself. Am I more of a giver or a receiver? Okay, if you're more of a giver, then you need to focus on, well, how can I be a better receiver? How have I missed opportunities? So you look at your friends and your spouses or associates, and maybe there's ways that they can help you that you haven't incorporated them. Maybe they want to be more involved in your world and what you're doing, and maybe your positive efforts. What can you do to help them being more involved? If you feel like you're more of a receiver, then you think, well, how can I give my part? I've received this much, maybe not as much as I want. I would like a lot more, all of us would. But what can I do to give more? What really helps the receiver to give more is if he does give, it's like putting money in the karma bank. So when you give, you're like putting money in savings. It's kind of like that. So that means in the future, when you are putting that money in your karma account, when you need something, when you need to receive in the future, you can draw it out. Now, if you are focused on receiving and you don't feel like you're getting anything, you don't feel like you're getting your share, that means in the past you haven't given enough. So you don't have enough money in the karma bank. Because you don't have enough money in the karma bank, now you really need to receive and you're not getting what you want. That means in the past, either this life or past lives, you did not put enough money in your karma bank. So we need to put that money in the karma bank to be able to receive when we need it. Just like, let's say you have a savings account. You may not touch that for a long period of time. It may be just a security thing. But then let's say you have a disaster strike, health problem, or bills show up unexpected or accident. All of a sudden you need to withdraw that money, and it's great. You need the money, you need to access it, and you can, and you have it available, and it's a life-saving thing. Now, let's suppose you have an accident and you need money and you don't have any savings. Well, you're in a world of hurt. Life is a lot harder, okay? And life is a lot harder because you didn't give anything to your karma bank. You didn't put enough stuff in there. So this, when we think of this principle, it gives us more incentive to give when it appears we're getting nothing back. And this is the reason a lot of people don't give as much as they should, because you often hear this statement, I give and I give and I give and I don't get anything back. Well, if you're not getting anything back, it's like you give and you give and you give to the bank and you're not getting anything back because you're not withdrawing it. Because but when it is in the bank, when the time is right, you can take it out. And so we can look over our lives. If you look over your lives, let's say you're 50 years old, look over the last 10 or 20 years. When you needed to make a withdrawal, were you able to? If you were not able to, then that means your karma bank account is low and you need to do some more giving. Okay, so do some more giving, put some more good karma money in your karma account. And so when the person understands this principle, then he can feel like he has more impetus to give because it makes more sense. He will then give even if it appears at the moment he's getting nothing in return. And this is a big complaint that people have. I give and I get nothing back. And I've often heard people say that they give and get nothing back. And people complain about that with family, friends, at work. I give and I get nothing back. It's impossible to get nothing back. You may not get back immediately, but you will get what you give back. It's the law. Whatever you give, you will get back in some type of recompense that is of equal value. And so when this principle is understood, it helps the disciple to become a consistent giver. He just doesn't give when it's easy to give. He gives when it's hard to give, and in good times and in bad times. And then the time eventually comes when his soul says, well, it's time for withdrawal. And so when the time is crucial, then he can make a withdrawal. Okay, let's have some comment on this. Do you guys identify that idea of giving and receiving?
I think it depends on the motive. If you give for the wrong motives, what you get won't be what you expect.
Yeah, the motive is an important aspect of giving. If you have a wrong motive, you actually won't be giving things of real value either. So you have to give things of real value, just like if you deposit monopoly money in your bank account, it won't do you any good because you're not making a sincere deposit. So it takes a good motive to make a valid deposit in your karma bank.
Also, the efficacy of what you're doing. If you keep giving to people and it only serves to enable them in bad behavior or take advantage of you, you're not creating a good situation there.
Yeah, you don't want to enable people. Like, say, the alcoholic, you don't want to buy him a bunch of bottles of whiskey for his birthday.
One of the truisms that
yeah,
I remember is you're not remembered for what you acquire, but for what you give away.
yeah.
And I can still remember receiving my first $1. Remember who gave me that, Joe?
Oh, was that me? I remember you tell that story.
Right, you gave me my first $1, and I never forgot it. And I knew, and you gave it to me at a time in the '60s, early or late, not late '50s, when money $1.
Yeah.
And so you've given me a lot of things throughout the years. I still have that that generator, the garage.
Yeah,
But I wanted to.
yeah, your connection
You've given me a lot of things. A lot of what?
your connection's a little bad, so yeah.
Yeah, I've got a bad connection here.
Yeah,
But
I can hear you now.
and your time, you've given me a lot of time over the years and a lot of information and material that you sent me through the mail.
Yeah, you know,
So you're a pretty good example
and I notice as
of a man
I
that.
notice as too as you age, you seem to be getting more generous. So that's great. Okay, It looks like Curtis' connection's a little bit off. Okay, any other comments
Well,
on?
yeah. Can you hear me? My connection's kind of
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah,
well. I just want to say one more thing. Here's how you know when your giving and receiving sequence is in balance. Yesterday, I did some work for a family, and I have in my truck bags, and in these bags are onions and potatoes and apples, and I just put them together and pass them out. And I knocked on this guy's door when I was all through, and I had a bag of these apples and onions and potatoes, and I said, here's something that you might like. And at the same time, his son brings forth a plate of donuts with a check on it. And he said, well, here's something you might like. So we kind of passed like that, and we both said, thank you. And we both felt really good that we were able to give and receive simultaneously. So it's kind of a balance
yeah,
there.
that's good when that type of things happen. And yeah, every once in a while that does happen where the giver and receiver exchange like that, and it produces a good feeling. But even when you give or receive and you're just doing it one-sidedly, it will eventually you'll meet up with, if you give, you eventually will receive. If you receive, you eventually have to give to receive more. And so it catches up with us. Now, what's interesting about giving, remember the first key of happiness is true communication. And giving is, and receiving is really a form of communication. When you give to someone, you're communicating to them, yeah, you are a valuable person, and that's why I'm giving to you. And it makes the person feel valued when they feel that you are giving to them. It's a great form of communication. And when a person receives what you give to them and they have joy, then it communicates that joy to the giver. So he thinks, that's great. I give this person this gift and he appreciates it. And that makes it worth everything I've spent on this gift, that this person really appreciates it. And think of when you've given, say, a gift to a little child. There's probably nobody appreciates a gift more than a little kid. Okay, you give a gift to a little child, something he really wants, and he just thrilled. And when you do this to a little child, I think the giver gets more pleasure than the kid, because there's nothing that gives a greater feeling to a person than to see a little child just thrilled of receiving a gift. What do you think of that? You guys you notice that with little children, how they appreciate it? And when you do give a gift to them, how it makes you feel really good. That so when you actually receive more, tremendous amount of happiness when you give a gift that's really appreciated. Same thing with adults. If you give a gift that an adult appreciates. Now, Curtis keeps talking about this dollar I give him. I can't even remember giving him that dollar, but he remembers really clearly. I guess out of the blue, I just give him a dollar at one time, when that was back when it was worth about $20 or so. And he thought that was, it really made an impression on him. And this sometimes happens. That sometimes you'll give a gift that doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but it's a big deal to the person that receives it. So you just never know how it's going to impact them.
I think that's why there's Halloween, so you can give to little kids.
Oh yeah, it's really fun to have little kids come knock on your door and see them thrilled to get the candy. And it's kind of fun. And so Yeah, there's nothing like making little children happy. But there's a child in all of us, and so if um, if somebody gives something like, well, Asaf there, he gave a kidney a few weeks ago, and I imagine that made him feel good that he was helping to save a life. Um, so you want to comment on that, Asaf? How you holding up? Is your healing going pretty good?
Yeah. Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Sorry for not having the picture of myself here, but because my camera is not so good.
Yeah, I'd say that's equivalent to giving $1 million or something to give a kidney. That was quite a sacrifice. So you'll definitely put some money in your karma bank there, I'll bet. So if Asaf needs a kidney in a future life, he's probably got one waiting there for him, or maybe a heart or something else.
Also, in this life, I am first in the line.
Yeah, right. That's true. Okay, so giving and receiving is kind of an ultimate communication. Well, maybe not ultimate, but a great means of communication. You're when you give, you're telling the person that he's valuable, and when you receive, you're telling the person that he is appreciated for what he or she is doing, and that's
I
important.
have
Feel-
I have a story. I
Okay.
read that in the New York Times, or LA Times years ago. It was a story about a man who was responding to a person who gave something to them. And he said, I lived in New York at the time with a tenant, and a tenant was upstairs, and he was from a foreign land, and he needed some help with all the paperwork, the tax, taking him to places and so forth. So about a year later, that person gave him a gift. And he looked at that gift and he said, well, I thank you very much, but it is not going to fit my decor. And he had given him 3 pictures. The man who gave him the picture was Andy Warhol. And he said, never refuse a picture from anybody, because you never know years down the line what you think is horrible, of like the picture of Andy Warhol with his Campbell soup picture.
Yeah.
And he said, look at what I would have now. 3 big pictures that I turned down. Now there was another example in the
Yeah,
60
they'd be
Minutes.
worth a lot of money now.
That's correct. So it's give and receive, but he took it down. He refused it. There was another thing that it was on 60 Minutes. It was the same situation about the art. This black man who was a hairstylist didn't know what to do with the permanent papers that he had. So he decided to make a collage, and then painted the collage. And then he made some few collages to his good clients. And the client looked at it, and of course they said, oh, thank you so much. And then they put it in a garage because they thought it was so awful. Now, go ahead about 5 years. His collage is now in a museum, and it's worth $10,000. So the girl was saying, now you have to go back in my garage and find that picture. So, you know, sometimes as artists, we just don't appreciate, not that I would probably appreciate that collage either, but so many times we don't appreciate a gift, which down the line is very worthwhile. And it came from the heart, from that person, but it's not our taste of whatever reason.
Yeah, a lot of the great artists and writers and innovators were not seen as what they wanted to give to the world was not appreciated or valued while they were alive, and then after they died, they became very valuable. So you just never know, and it's probably somewhat frustrating for a lot of these people to not be appreciated while they're alive. But
Well, I agree, because if he had given me some Campbell soup, to put in my kitchen or my living room, I don't think I would be thrilled either. However, go down the line 20 years, 30 years, anybody who has a Campbell soup picture is worth a lot of money.
yeah, yeah. Okay, now as far as giving and receiving go, we have the greatest opportunity in our most intense relationships. Of course, one of the most intense relationship is marriage or a close romantic relationship. And then we have our friends, our family, they're very close. In our circle of relationships, we work out this giving and receiving. And balancing it off is one of the great keys to happiness. And like I say, everybody has to take note of their lives. Am I more of a giver or receiver? Am I in the middle? Am I balanced? Am I doing both? So we want to make sure that we balance ourselves out. And think of the various relationships. Some relationships you may find yourself receiving more, and other relationships you may find yourself giving more. Maybe you have a relationship where a family member or a friend or a spouse wants you to give a lot more than they're giving back. And if you feel this way, then you need to have some communication, say, look, we need to have this be a two-way street here. So you need then to have an honest communication. And if it's other way around, the same thing. So the seeker needs to examine all the relationships going on in his life and saying, now person A, is my relationship balanced with this person? And how about person B? Is my relationship balanced? Maybe my relationship is balanced pretty much with my spouse, but not with my son or daughter, or maybe not with my best friend. Some may be easy to balance, because some people are really easy to get along with, and other people are difficult to get along with. And other people are, if you have a friend that's really focused on receiving and another focused on giving, your relationship with these two people will be quite different. And depending on where you are will be depending on which one you'll kind of gravitate to the most. If you're a strong giver, you will gravitate more to strong receivers. If you're a strong receiver, you'll try to seek out strong givers. And so this principle just needs to work out and achieve balance. To give to another person what he or she wants is not easy to do. It will be found, however, that the more accurate the communication is for both parties, the easier it will be to give. Generally, a partner in a committed relationship does not have his needs fulfilled because they were not properly communicated. So if you're in an intense relationship, to make the giving and receiving flow properly, the communication has to be there. And that's why communication is the first key to happiness. Because if there is not good communication, then you cannot have the flow of giving and receiving where it achieves balance. And balance is the key. But with improper communication, so let's say you want more praise from your associates. Okay, you need more acknowledgement of what you're doing for them. Okay, but your associates think, boy, this Bill guy, he's just a really independent guy. He doesn't even need any praise because he's so independent and secure that I don't need to praise him. He knows that I appreciate him. Okay, well, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he feels like I am underappreciated, and so he stops giving as much as he did before, and it's all tied up in communication. Bill perhaps needs to communicate the fact that, hey, I really appreciate your praise, your comments, your input. So if he makes sure this is communicated, then his friends and associates will acknowledge him more. If they think he doesn't need it, then they won't give it to him so much. But if he does need it, he needs to communicate, and everybody needs acknowledgement for what they do. Without acknowledgement, we don't have much incentive to do anything. So we need acknowledgement, and this needs to be communicated. And so communication is a key. The first key of happiness is a key to make giving and receiving work, so we can have that flow. The better the communication, the more we can achieve balance by giving and receiving. Now, A Course in Miracles makes this interesting statement. It says, to give and to receive are one. Do you think that's true? And why is that true? To give and to receive are one. How is that possible when you're receiving, you're not giving, are you? So why would it say to give and to receive are one? Do you think that's a true statement or not?
They have to balance out. It's like a virtue taken to extremes ceases to be a virtue anymore. It becomes a bad habit. If I was to only give, healing energy and never ask for any healing energy for myself, my battery would run out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If we're all a part of one source, then when you give, you're giving to that source of which you're a part. So you're giving to yourself when you give to another person, in a way.
Yeah. And the Course makes this point. It says from the higher point of view, there is no time. So for us who are in time, when we give, it appears that we're not receiving back right away. But if the time element is taken out, then when you give, you receive instantaneously in the higher realms where there is no time. Okay, so you take the time equation out, to give and receive are completely one. So it just appears not to be one when we're down here in the world where time operates the way it does. It appears to be you can give and not get anything back, but you do get it back when you eliminate the time equation. It's that to give and receive then become one. Now, another element in giving and receiving is compromise. Compromise is necessary in all relationships: marriage, family, work, friends. And compromise is difficult for a lot of people. You can be in a group and maybe, say you're in a group of 7 people doing something. 5 people are willing to compromise and 2 people aren't. Those 2 that are unwilling to compromise can just throw a monkey wrench in the whole enterprise or everything that's going on and make everything very difficult. To make things work, every person in an endeavor must be willing to compromise to some degree. And in a romantic relationship, marriage, or a close partnership, family, work, friends, to be willing to compromise is an important ingredient in giving and receiving, because compromise is a form of giving. And to accept that compromise is a form of receiving. And okay, any other comments on that?
What you do for another, so do it for yourself. That's an old statement. There is always a balance. And you can't give unless you first have received from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And now been a writer and teacher for some time, but every teacher that and inspiring person that I have read always acknowledges that they have received from many different sources. Like even Isaac Newton, considered the greatest scientist of all time, said that he stood upon the shoulders of giants before him. And so that's what we have to do. Now our next section we're going into will be the 7 needs. We'll just read them over very quickly, and then we'll cover this in our next meeting. There are 7 basic human needs, and interestingly, they're associated with the 7 rays. The first need that we have is a need for union, associated with ray 1, which governs synthesis, and synthesis, the power of synthesis brings things together. Brings things that are different and maybe seemingly unrelated and makes them related and brings union. The second ray is love wisdom, and the need for love is associated with this. The third ray, intelligence and matter, and that's the need for experience associated with this. Fourth ray associated with creativity, the need for creative expression. And 5, ray associated with knowledge, and the need with this is the need for individuals to obtain knowledge. And 6th, the ray that governs idealism and emotions, the need for emotional fulfillment. And 7, the ray that governs order, and the need associated with that is the need for order in our lives. And we're going to cover those, and as we move along one by one, and it should be pretty interesting. And so that's main material to cover for today. Is there any comments or questions before we wrap it up? Well, we hope everybody sends out good vibes to the world, and especially the United States as the election draws near. We send out our hopes and thoughts and meditations to hopefully that we can go through these next few weeks and few months and keep everything together so society remains intact. And this will be our focus. And in the meantime, we will see you next week.
And we acknowledge goodwill in the world and this country.
Yeah, the power of goodwill is certainly what we need. And everybody here
And
in
remember, we retain only that which we have given away.
Yeah, that's a great statement too. And well, everybody here's got lots of goodwill. We just need to go out and make sure everybody we connect with shares in goodwill with us. Till then, we will see you next week, next Sunday at 2 p.m., all being well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Goodwill, peace.